It happened at 1 in the morning. Flashing lights, pounding fists, and a mistake that could have cost a man his life. But instead, it changed an entire city. So before you scroll past, listen closely. Because what you're about to hear isn't just about race or uniforms. It's about respect, forgiveness, and the power of seeing the person behind the label. Stay with me till the end, because the lesson this man teaches will restore your faith in humanity. And hey, before we begin, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, so you never miss a story that inspires hope and change. Now, let's begin. The clock struck 1:07 a.m. in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Atlanta. The streets were empty. The only sound was the faint hum of crickets and the soft breeze rustling through the trees. Inside a modest one-story brick house on Oakwood Drive, Marcus Hill, a 47-year-old black man, was sound asleep. His dog, Rex, lay curled up beside his bed, the kind of loyal companion that always barked once when something felt wrong. That night, Rex didn't bark once. He barked like thunder. Marcus jolted awake, his heart pounding as he heard heavy footsteps outside his window. Then, "Police! Open up!" Before Marcus could process what was happening, the front door exploded open. Splinters flew across the living room as a group of 4 armed officers stormed in, shouting commands. "Hands where we can see them! Get on the ground! Now!" Marcus froze. He was wearing a plain white undershirt, disoriented, eyes blinking against the flashlight beams that cut through his home like searchlights. "What's going on?" he shouted. "This is my house." But his words were drowned out by orders and confusion. One officer shoved him down, while another began sweeping the rooms. The sound of drawers opening, footsteps pounding, it was chaos. Marcus kept his hands in the air, breathing hard. His military discipline was the only thing keeping him calm. "Sir, please," he said in a steady voice. "You've made a mistake. I'm not who you think I am." "Quiet!" one of the officers barked. "We have a warrant for a suspected armed suspect matching your description." Marcus's heart dropped. Matching my description? He was a middle-aged black man in his own home, and yet, in that moment, he was treated like a criminal. Rex barked again, the sound echoing off the walls. "Don't shoot my dog!" Marcus shouted, terrified that one wrong move could end everything. But just as one of the officers turned his flashlight toward the hallway, something caught his eye. There, hanging on the wall, illuminated by the flashlight's beam, was a framed Navy uniform, neatly pressed, gleaming medals pinned across the chest. The officer froze. "Wait," he murmured. That's a senior chief petty officer uniform." The others turned to look. The shouting stopped. The tension in the room shifted instantly. The same man they had just pushed to the floor was a decorated U.S. Navy veteran, with 22 years of honorable service written in every ribbon and badge displayed on that wall. For the first time since they broke in, the house fell silent. One officer slowly lowered his weapon. Another whispered, "Oh my God, what have we done?" Marcus stood there, hand still raised, eyes full of disbelief and quiet pain. "Now," he said softly, "can somebody explain why you just broke into a Navy veteran's home?" The air in the room hung heavy. The flashing police lights outside painted streaks of red and blue across Marcus's living room walls lined with framed photographs of him in uniform, smiling with his Navy crew, and one that stood out, a younger Marcus saluting proudly beside the American flag. Officer Daniels, the one who'd first shouted for Marcus to get down, stood frozen. He'd seen those medals before, the Navy Commendation Medal, the Good Conduct Medal, the Iraq Campaign Ribbon, the kind of decorations that spoke of discipline, courage, and sacrifice. Marcus straightened himself up, still calm but visibly hurt. "Can I stand now?" he asked. The officer nodded quickly, his voice breaking a little. "Sir, I'm so sorry. We thought—" Marcus raised a hand. You thought I was someone else. Yeah, I got that part. He took a slow breath, then added, You didn't even ask my name before you kicked my door in. Daniels swallowed hard. The other officers looked away, ashamed. One of them quietly turned off his flashlight, unable to look Marcus in the eye. Marcus walked toward the wall where his Navy uniform hung, his fingers brushing lightly over the medals. I wore this uniform to protect people, he said softly, people I never even met. I fought for this country, for the same flag you wear on your shoulder. I never thought I'd come home and have to raise my hands in my own living room. The words hit hard. The officers shifted uncomfortably. Officer Daniels finally spoke. We received a call about a burglary suspect. Tall black male, late 40s, driving a silver sedan parked near this street. We traced the plate and it led us here. The system flagged your address. Marcus turned around slowly. You didn't think to double-check? You didn't think to knock first? You just broke into my home because I fit a description? No one answered. Rex padded over and sat beside Marcus, still growling under his breath. Marcus knelt down, rubbed the dog's head gently, and said, Easy, boy. They're leaving soon. The silence stretched for a long moment. Then one of the younger officers whispered, Sir, are you really a senior chief? Marcus gave a small nod. 22 years. Served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and on the USS Roosevelt. Retired 3 years ago. The officer blinked, speechless. Sir, Daniel said again, his tone heavy with guilt, we're truly sorry. We'll cover all damages. It was a mistake, one I'll report myself. Marcus sighed. You can't unbreak a door or unpoint a gun. But maybe next time, you'll remember this before you storm into someone's home. The officers nodded quietly, holstering their weapons. As they turned to leave, Marcus looked at the picture of himself in uniform once more, a reminder of the life he lived, and how quickly people could forget what that uniform meant. He wasn't just another man in the system. He was a protector, a father, a veteran. And tonight, the people sworn to protect had misjudged him in the worst possible way. For a few seconds after the officers left, Marcus just stood there, surrounded by silence. The air still smelled of broken wood and fear. The door hung crooked on its hinges, his living room a mess. He took a deep breath, looking up once again at the Wall of Honor, the one thing they didn't destroy. Every frame told a piece of his life story. The photo of him shaking hands with his commanding officer after a rescue mission. The commendation letter signed by the Navy Admiral for courage under fire. A framed flag folded neatly, one that had flown aboard his ship during deployment. And then, his eyes landed on one particular frame, a simple handwritten note from his late father. It read, Son, no matter where life takes you, let the world see the man behind the uniform. Marcus swallowed hard. That line hit differently tonight. Because tonight, the world didn't see the man behind the uniform. They only saw the color of his skin. He ran a hand across his face and sank onto the couch. Rex jumped up beside him, resting his head on Marcus's lap. Moments later, there was a soft knock on the broken door. Marcus looked up, surprised. It was Officer Daniels, the one who had led the raid. He had returned alone, hat in his hands, eyes full of shame. Sir, he said quietly, I didn't feel right leaving it like that. Marcus didn't respond at first. Daniels stepped inside carefully, looking around at the wreckage his team had caused. I wanted to see the man we nearly disrespected face to face. No badges, no titles, just man to man. Marcus studied him for a moment, then nodded slightly. Go ahead. Daniels took a deep breath and said, My father was in the army. He taught me what that uniform means. I've spent my whole career trying to honor it. But tonight, I failed it. I'm truly sorry, sir. Marcus could see the sincerity in his eyes. For a moment, neither man spoke. Then Marcus stood, walked over to the wall, and took down a framed photo. It showed a much younger version of himself, dressed in navy blues, smiling beside two fellow sailors, one white, one Latino. He handed the photo to Daniels. "This is who I served with," Marcus said. "Different colors, same courage. Out there, we didn't see race. We saw brothers." Daniels looked at the photo and nodded, emotion in his throat. "I needed that reminder." Marcus gestured toward the uniform again. "That's the truth on the wall, officer. Not anger, not fear. Just service, sacrifice, and humanity. You can't let this job make you forget that." Daniels wiped his eyes. "You're right. I won't forget, sir." He turned to leave, but Marcus stopped him. "Hey." Daniels looked back. Marcus offered his hand. "You made a mistake. But what matters now is what you do after. Be better than the badge tonight." Daniels shook his hand, firm, respectful, grateful. "Yes, sir. I promise." As he left, Marcus finally smiled for the first time that night. He looked again at his father's note on the wall and whispered, "You were right, Dad. The world saw the man behind the uniform tonight, just not the way I expected." By morning, the story had already begun to spread, not through news outlets, but through the neighborhood itself. Mrs. Patterson from across the street had recorded part of the incident on her porch camera. She'd seen everything, the flashing lights, the shouting, the fear in Marcus's voice. When she realized who he was, she posted online. They raided the home of a Navy hero who served this country for 2 decades. When will we learn? Within hours, the video had been shared thousands of times. People in the community were outraged and heartbroken. Neighbors who'd known Marcus for years came to check on him, bringing coffee, tools, and even materials to help fix his door. "Marcus, you don't deserve this," one man said, shaking his head. "You served us, and look how they treated you." But Marcus simply replied, "Anger won't fix what's broken. Understanding will." That single line was quoted again and again as the story spread. By the end of the day, local news stations arrived outside his home. Cameras flashed, microphones extended toward him, all asking the same question. "Mr. Hill, what do you want to say to the police department after what happened last night?" Marcus looked straight into the camera, his calm voice carrying the weight of experience. "I don't want revenge. I want change. I want young officers to learn the value of seeing the man, not just the description. Because behind every face you see is a story you don't know yet." That clip went viral. People across the country began sharing it with the hashtag #SeeTheMan. The police department released a public apology within 24 hours. Officer Daniels himself requested to meet Marcus again, this time with the police chief beside him. When they arrived, Marcus didn't greet them with anger. He greeted them with coffee and 2 chairs on his porch. "I told you, officer," Marcus said gently. "Be better than the badge." Within days, the story reached national news. Veterans groups, community leaders, and even former Navy officials began reaching out to Marcus, thanking him for handling the situation with grace instead of rage. On one morning talk show, the host asked him, "Mr. Hill, how did you stay so calm when you were treated so unfairly?" Marcus smiled slightly. "Because I learned a long time ago that calmness is power. When you faced real danger at sea, you stop letting small minds shake your peace." His answer resonated deeply. People online began sharing his quotes, words of patience, dignity, and quiet strength. He received letters from young police recruits saying things like, "Your story changed the way I see my job. You reminded me why respect matters more than authority." But it wasn't just the police who changed, it was the community itself. The local precinct began organizing uniform and unity meetings, where citizens and officers sat together to talk about real experiences, fears, and misunderstandings. And at the very first one, they invited Marcus to speak. Standing before a room full of officers, young and old, Marcus began his talk with the same words he told Daniels that night. "You can't let the badge make you forget the man behind it." The audience was silent, hanging on every word. Some officers even teared up. "Every person you approach is somebody's father, son, mother, or daughter," Marcus continued. "If you remember that, you'll serve the way the uniform demands, with honor." When he finished, the entire room stood and applauded. For the first time in a long time, Marcus felt like his uniform, even though it hung on a wall, was still serving its purpose. Weeks later, Marcus received an unexpected letter from the mayor's office. Inside was a formal apology and an invitation. They wanted him to lead a citywide campaign on unity and awareness, bridging the gap between citizens and law enforcement. The initiative would be called See the Man, named after Marcus's own words. Marcus smiled as he read it. He never imagined that one terrifying night could lead to something so meaningful. The campaign launched at a local park. Hundreds of people gathered, police officers, veterans, teachers, families, and children holding signs that read, "Respect has no color." Officer Daniels spoke first, publicly acknowledging his mistake. "That night changed me," he said, "because one man showed me grace instead of hate." Then Marcus took the stage. The crowd fell completely silent. He looked around at the faces before him, diverse, hopeful, united. "I could have been angry," he began, "but anger doesn't heal. What heals is conversation. What heals is truth. What heals is the courage to look beyond the surface." He paused, voice thick with emotion. "I wore my Navy uniform to serve this country. But the real service began the night I hung it on my wall and forgave the people who broke into my home." The crowd erupted in applause, not just for Marcus, but for the message. That moment marked a turning point for the entire city. Policies were reviewed. Training programs improved. And once a month, Marcus still visited the police academy to remind new recruits of one thing. See the man. Hear the story. Then make your judgment. Weeks turned into months, and Marcus's life slowly returned to peace. His door was fixed, his nights grew quiet again, and the same wall that had witnessed fear now stood as a symbol of hope. Sometimes, neighbors or strangers would stop by just to meet him, to shake his hand and thank him for showing strength in a world quick to anger. And Marcus would always smile and say, "Kindness isn't weakness. It's the loudest kind of power." As the camera fades out on the YouTube story, you can picture it. Marcus sitting by that same wall, the metals shining softly under the morning light, Rex curled up at his feet. Above the uniform hangs that handwritten note from his father. "Son, let the world see the man behind the uniform." And this time, the world truly did. Never judge someone by appearance or assumptions. Every person carries a story, a battle, and a history that you might never see, until you look with empathy, not fear.